This is the flag of Poland, which is known for being very different to the flags of Indonesia and of Monaco, and lots of people struggle to tell these flags apart. Personally, I look back to the Indonesian National Revolution of the 1940s, in which the Indonesian rebels would rip off the blue part of the flag to create the Indonesian flag. But let me put that right back together there, because, you know, I don't want to upset. There's a different way of remembering which way the colours on their flag go, and this is that the blood always sinks to the bottom, and that's why the red on the Polish flag is at the bottom. But in this video, I don't just want to look at this Polish flag, because we all know, well, now with this little trick, or these tricks, that this is the Polish flag. But there's also another Polish flag, and that's the one that is shown here on the right, with a coat of arms in the middle. And basically today, I want to look at why these two Polish flags exist, which one is which, and what's the history behind them, to have a bit of an introduction into the history of Poland by looking at these flags. So first of all, we need to look at the name of the flag, and the flag in Polish is the Flaga Polski. This is just the Polish flag, but there are several other names for flags earlier in history. Now, this kind of flag is the earliest that we have accounts for, and these go back into the 10th century when people started to write things about the tribe, and this kind of banner or flag would be attached to a kind of spear or some kind of long weapon like that, and it was called in Polish the stanica. Now, later on, we get this image of the eagle that starts to appear. We don't know exactly where it comes from. The stanica were probably based on Roman ones that the legionnaires would carry into battle. Obviously, they had the eagles famously, so it might go back to that. The stanica are probably based on what Roman cavalry would carry, as I've discussed in other flag videos. But the first time we hear about an eagle is in 1182. This was during the reign of Duke Casimir the Just of Poland, and it says that he carried, they were victorious under the sign of the eagle against the Ruthenians. The Ruthenians are Slavic tribes that lived further east to the poles, so in the area of modern-day Ukraine or Russia. Now, this flag then is called, with the eagle, is referred to as the chorągiew. The first extant evidence of an eagle being used in Polish royal arms is in 1290 during the reign of Przemysł II, and this is in the form of a seal that shows it. Now, later in 1320, we get even more information about this eagle symbol, and this is during the reign of Władysław Łokietek, and during his reign we understand that the symbol for all Poland, and it's used for the whole kingdom at this point, is the white eagle that we've already come across, but specifically on a red background. And this will come up again and again, so you can see the on this seal, you can see that there are eagles all over the seal, as well as a lion that's sometimes used on the earlier Polish coat of arms as well. And of course, this was then becoming the symbol of the whole nation of Poland because of the royal family there. So this is taken from an image of the Battle of Grunwald that was painted obviously much later, but the famous 1410 battle, we assume, were fighting under this symbol of the white eagle on a red background. Now, of course, it was for a long time also used in Kraków, which was the capital at that point of Poland and remained so until the late 16th century. And that's why still today the voivodeship, or the province of Lesser Poland, their symbol is still the white eagle on the red background, because for a long time that was the capital, so that's where the royal family was, in the very southwest of Poland, and that then became the symbol for all Poland later on. Sometime after Władysław Łokietek's reign in 1386, which is a very pivotal date for Polish history, they formed a royal alliance with the house that was ruling in Lithuania, and this of course would later become the famous Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth. And then they decided to actually show this on the royal symbols that they had, and so they incorporated both the symbol of Poland, so the white eagle on the red background, with the symbol that was used by the royal house, the duchy in Lithuania, which is called the pursuer. It's a white knight on a white horse on a red background. And so they added these two together to make a symbol that was emblematic of the joint unions between Poland and Lithuania, and they came up with designs similar to this one. So you can see the white eagle and the pursuer inside the weapon, and then the red and the white, which are common colours for both of them, being used as the background for the flag, as well as several other heraldic symbols. This example here is actually the coat of arms, or the royal banner, used by Sigismund Vasa, who was a king both from Sweden and from Poland. So he ruled over Sweden, which you can see because of the arms inside. So the blue coat of arms is one of the, well, it's the Royal House of Vasa's symbol, but you can see the three crowns on the blue background as a Swedish symbol, as well as the Swedish lion with the white in the background, and the symbol of the Vasa family, this kind of willow in the center there, but that on top of the symbols of the Polish house and the Lithuanian house, which had already been established. So it's interesting what you can see by looking at the coat of arms, and that this then became the official flag for Poland. But of course, after the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth was partitioned between several nations, things got a little bit more interesting for those flying the Polish flags. And obviously there's lots of really beautiful artwork to do with the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth period, the glory days of the Poles, and let's not forget this masterpiece. Following Poland's partition, many revolts against the different powers that took over parts of Poland used different colours and flags to symbolise their aims. So, for example, in 1831, during the November Revolution, the Polish there, you can see here the Uhlans are using both red and blue, because blue was also an important colour. Of course, Poland was a very Catholic colour, and blue was associated with the Virgin Mary. Although white and red did become the official colour for the cockades worn at the back of the soldiers' hats, which they were wearing. And so in 1846, during the Kraków uprising, so against Austrian rule rather than Russian rule, as the November uprising was, they were using, you can see clearly there on the lances, the red and the white that is familiar to the Poles. Although you will notice actually that it's the other way around too on the modern Polish flag. So clearly it had not yet stabilized into a design, which leads to the question, when do we actually see the first flag that we would recognize being used by Poles? Now the answer to this is in 1916, and of course 1916 is slap bang in the First World War, and Poland, being situated where it was home to part of the Eastern Front during the First World War, which is quite different to the Western Front. Now, as explained, Poland was partitioned, so Polish soldiers could on the one hand be fighting for the Russians, but if they were from a different part of Poland, they might be fighting for the German Imperial Army or for the Imperial Austro-Hungarian Army instead. The situation changed first in 1917 with the surrender of the Russians, but then again in 1918 with the surrender and dissolution of the Imperial German Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, at which point Poles were able to retake their country, which had not existed for about 123 years, and so they proclaimed the Second Polish Republic. And what better flag to represent that than this one here, with the old colours of the white and the red. But of course 1918, it was the era of the tricolour and of the simple flags, and so they decided to go for this flag rather than going back to something with an eagle. However, they did go back to using an eagle on maritime flags and on flags abroad, because often signal flags were just white and red, and so they didn't want to add to any kind of confusion. We've seen this before, for example, with German flags being used on the water and with the Spanish flag being used at sea, that they'd have special emblems and designs to differentiate them from normal signal flags. So the Second Polish Republic used the normal flag without an eagle ensign at home, but abroad they would often use the eagle flag, and of course at sea as well. Now, of course, during the Second World War, Poland famously was invaded both by the Germans and by the Soviets from the other side, but Polish freedom fighters on both at home and abroad, so this is a photo from the Battle of Monte Cassino in Italy. Polish soldiers were involved there, and they hoisted the Polish flag above the ruined monastery there. And as well, there was a Polish, I believe it was a Polish battalion fighting in Berlin, and so you can see here a Polish flag raised above Berlin. Obviously, after the war ended, when Poland became independent, once more, the nationalists wanted to use this as their flag, although, of course, the communist regime that came in its place had other ideas. But after the fall of that, they did go back to using this, and this is indeed the Polish national flag today. Alright everyone, thank you very much for watching. This has been my video on the Polish flag with the eagle and the symbolism behind it, as well as a little bit of a blitz through the history of Poland from the start, the very early period of the kingdom and its fighting its neighbours, the Duchy of Lithuania and the flags that came from that, as well as the union with Sweden for a while under King Vasa, and then later history as well. Now, I plan to make a few more videos on this, having recently been in Poland myself, as well as having other reasons to make videos on Polish history, which is very interesting. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and share it around with any friends that you think would find this interesting. Thank you very much for watching. I have been Hilbert, and this has been The History. Dziękuję bardzo.